is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Alongside Mr. Monday, Chris Allman. We'll find it. We'll find the nickname.
Mr. Monday.
Mr. Monday.
Astros Monday. I'm ready to talk about it. Let's go. Oh, wrong show?
Wrong show. But we had a really interesting college football weekend once again. They're not very rarely are they not. There's a couple of dud weekends in there, but there's always something that happens. And right off the bat, Deion hype train keeps on rolling I don't think it was very unexpected what they did in Nebraska. I was impressed that Nebraska held it as close as they did for as long as they did with no offense. But the Deion hype train keeps rolling. But the big story is Texas beating Alabama in Bryant-Denny Stadium and doing it in a fashion in which, at the end of the game, Nick Saban does this thing when they're losing or they've lost where he goes Mary Catherine Gallagher. Okay. He puts his hands under his arms. And for people who don't get that reference, it was a Molly Shannon SNL sketch back in the 90s that spurned a very mediocre at best
That was an obscure
movie.
And dated reference. Yeah. I'm tracking, though.
But he puts his hands like he does this, and that's it. That means you've got Nick Saban. The minute that he does that.
It's the equivalent of him tapping out.
Yeah, that's it. You've got him. I think he's trying to, constrict his rage. So he just, grabs his chest around.
Yeah. But it doesn't happen often.
No.
So it's pretty rare to get to see it.
Yeah, if you go look at the end of the game against Johnny Manziel, the LSU game ended, in the last actual play last year. But especially
he didn't have time to pout.
Yeah, any of the losses, especially that happened at Bryant-Denny, which are very few.
Yeah.
They're very few. He does that, and you're like, oh, you got him. And it was a wild thing to see Texas not only beat Alabama, but really be better in so many aspects of the game, as where last year was a little bit of a both teams played tight the whole time.
Yeah.
This one was not that, and Quinn Ewers finally making some plays, throwing the deep ball. It was impressive, and then you come away going, man, does Alabama have a quarterback problem? Which we kind of maybe thought they would have, but the reality of Alabama actually having a quarterback problem, when that's not been something for more than a decade, to varying degrees, that's kind of wild to think about.
Let me ask you, I view us as two different types of college football consumers. Mm-hmm. I'm not a casual consumer, but I see myself merely as a consumer, not necessarily as an analyst or can break down X's and O's. I, as a consumer, having watched Georgia kind of ascend to the top of the throne nationally, but especially in the SEC, doesn't mean Alabama's bad, but they've taken a back seat for the first time in 16, 17 years, kind of consistently. Therefore, I wasn't completely shocked to see Texas beat them down there and beat them the way they did. Were you... I don't know. Where would you rate it? Would you rate shocked, surprised?
I was mildly surprised because I picked them to win, because it's hard for me to pick against them to lose at home.
Yeah.
But I'm not that surprised. And if you look at the evidence around the country about how rosters are reshaping and how things have moved so rapidly because of the rule changes with the transfer portal, I'm not going to include name, image, and likeness in this for Alabama because they don't have that problem.
They don't have an NIL issue at all.
They don't have that problem. Nick Saban can go in front of the boosters and warn them about everybody else that's doing it. He's just telling them in his own way, kind of fear-mongering a little bit, hey, if you guys slow down, money bags in College Station's going to get you, or Los Angeles or Athens, Georgia.
Yeah.
He can do that. But they don't have that problem. Because whoever goes to Alabama can go there pretty rest assured that you're going to be all right.
You're
that's
good.
Going to be fine.
Comfortable.
But what I do think is hurting Alabama is that their ability, and this is going to be anybody's ability, they're just the first one to do it. Georgia will suffer the same fate soon enough. whether they can maintain and how it shakes out, especially with the 12-team playoff. But what you can't do is sign all these 4- and 5-star guys. Then if they don't pan out right away and you take a transfer at their position and put them further back, that guy may leave. Mm-hmm. And I'll just call it 50-50 generously, but it's probably less than that. But this 50-50 shot, he's going to help somebody else.
Yeah.
But you're not able to hoard on the roster anymore.
Sure.
So it's very much similar to, you remember the movie Rudy?
Yes.
Okay. In the movie Rudy, there's a scene where he's talking to a guy in the locker room, and the guy's like, look, I had scholarships to go to 3 Big Ten schools, but my dad wanted me to come here. And then, that was back in the day, was pre-85 scholarship limit. So if you could give as many scholarships as you wanted, and schools like Alabama, and Bear Bryant was like, yeah, I'll give this guy a scholarship to come to Alabama,
and then just
knowing that he can't now go to Auburn.
Yeah.
So he's, well, I've got all these guys. He's a good player, but we'll see what happens. Whatever happens, happens, but I've got all the good players. Well, even in the 85 scholarship limit era, because you had to wait a year, like you're essentially when you decide to transfer, you're waiting 2 years to play, right? And everybody wants immediate action nowadays. So even then, you're like, well, I might as well just wait. If I'm going to redshirt here, I'm going to redshirt there. Let's see what happens. So then, once you've made, you just kind of get stuck. But now that you can one time transfer wherever you want to go, Alabama can't develop half these guys that were probably going to be good for them when they were juniors, but now they're going and playing for somebody else when they're a sophomore, and that's a guy you have to replace. So I think it's evident. And then the teams that are right now reaping the benefits of the transfer portal, the Colorado, Florida State, Texas, USC, and I'll throw another one in there, Miami, after this weekend, you can see how they've turned stuff around. Does that mean that any of those schools are going to win a national title? Maybe, maybe not. Probably not, really. I mean, the odds for winning it are really tough. But it does mean that those guys that were helping you and not helping someone else aren't helping you, or not just sitting on your roster. You can't hoard anymore. So I think it's kind of an interesting thing that's happened.
What is the general? I think the easy thing is to poke at Texas fan in this moment where they're rightfully excited and poke them with the Texas is back thing, which is not fair. They rightfully should be really jazzed about winning at Bama. What is the general temperature of Texas fan right now? Are they loud and proud, we are back? Are they measured?
Would say cautiously optimistic.
Okay, which I think is fair.
Which they needed to be.
Yeah.
I think of any fan base in the country that needed to be cut down to size and learn what realism is.
Yeah.
It was Texas.
Yeah.
2005, here's the thing that happened in 2005. Texas fans already had not realized it had been 30 years since they'd won a national title. They didn't realize it. And then 2005 happened. They made a whole channel about how great they were. Nobody watched it but them. All these things happened, and then they kept expecting it to happen again. And then they realized how long a time it is between 1970 and 2005. And now they feel how long it is between 2005, 2009, the last time they were really good. Yeah. And now they because the information's out there and you can feel it. Because, I didn't grow up in Texas. I grew up in Florida. And so if you had asked me in 1994 in Fort Myers, Florida, if you'd asked any football fan what they think of the University of Texas, they'd have been like, oh, they're cute.
Sure.
Earl Campbell was there. What's happened since then? Because really, the 80s were not a banner decade for Texas. They didn't win any national titles or anything.
No, from about 84 until they snuck in that one Big 12 championship with John Malkovich. But you're right, from 84 to about 99, pretty run-of-the-mill program.
Yeah. And so that's kind of what they're in right now, right?
Yeah.
Until now, Sark's there, and he has realistically addressed the issues of the program. That's part of the problem you have, I think, a lot of times when you move on from a coach that's won, is that programs don't realistically assess where they are in that moment. Mm-hmm. They just assess what happened in this individual season or two that turned the national championship coach into a guy that's not there anymore.
Right.
So Nebraska's in this right now. Nebraska might have, with Matt Rule, someone who has to being forced into reasonably address that it's a long time since 2001. Mm-hmm. And as before, they were just trying to fix. Well, this guy was this like Bill Callahan should have changed the offense. Bo Pelini was too mean. Mike Riley was too nice. Scott Frost, they get there like, well, he'll bring back the glory days because he knows what the glory days are, but he wasn't ready for that job.
Yeah.
And then, so now you have, like, you're kind of forced into, where are you in the modern world? Because the modern football world has changed around you very rapidly.
So fast.
So fast.
Much.
So now you're kind of forced into doing it.
Yeah.
Texas, I don't think really, Mac Brown left, retired, was
Sure.
ushered out, whatever you want to say.
Yes.
Mac Brown's gone. Okay, so then their boosters, and this is why they get the bad rap, we're like, well, obviously we're going to get Nick Saban here because we get whoever the best is.
Yeah.
Not assessing that, no, the College Football Vatican is in Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
Right.
It is not in Austin, Texas.
Right.
Bear Bryant coached at Bama.
Yes.
He did not coach at Texas.
Yes.
This guy is winning at Bama. It is historically better than you.
Yeah.
And so Nick Saban said no. Then Jimbo Fisher said no. Then Jim Mora Jr. said no. And then what? I don't know how.
It's pretty steep.
I don't know how
steep drop there.
How far down the line that you want to go until you get to Charlie Strong as their choice of the head coach.
Yeah.
When he was at Louisville, and he said yes. He came in, did not fairly assess what was going on. Then Tom Herman came in and did not. I think Tom Herman knew what was going on, but he was too high strung to fix it.
Yeah.
He would get drilled down in the minutia of things.
Yeah.
As opposed to like, all right, we got to fix the culture in this room. Well, I'm going to make sure that I put up the PP chart where the media can see it, so they know how good a job I'm doing. Or this guy said something about me on the radio. I'm going to call him. Like, dude, I've said it to a couple of people in this, being in this business long I have. If anything I say to you derails your day, like, you've got bigger problems than me.
Yeah, there's a little sensitivity there, probably.
Yeah. So, like, again, it's, we don't know everything. Like, media people, we don't know everything. We don't know anything. What do we know? We're just here spouting opinions.
Yeah.
And if you're the head coach, you're making so much more money than me.
Yeah.
So much more. You've won at life. You don't need to worry about me. You've won.
Okay, so going back to the Bama-Texas game.
Yeah.
It looks like for the last few years, they have had dudes at the skill positions.
Yeah.
And it just hasn't, for whatever reason, they haven't put it all together. It felt like Saturday, that was one of the games I really was able to watch quite a bit of. Not candidly, Astros-Padres was going on, so I was back and forth. But it felt like, for the first time in a long time, that it was clicking for them. Xavier Worthy, I guess, who has had some drop issues, makes a phenomenal catch.
I think he's had some
ball.
drop issues, and he's had some poor me issues. And I think he's grown up a little bit. I think that was a little bit of it, maturity, you know? Like, and that happened, like, it's going to happen.
That's to be expected with kids.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'm indifferent on whether Texas is back. But if they are, this was a huge step in that direction.
Well,
like, I no longer look at them, and after that game, I at least lean more towards, boy, this team's actually really good. They weren't just good today and against a below average to average opponent. That was a really the quality win is an understatement.
Yeah, it was huge. And Quinn Ewers threw them to the win. Like, he was throwing deep passes. That was not something he could do a year ago.
Yeah.
He had his signature win. Sark had his signature win. Now that they've gotten that, they can move on to dealing with, because especially when you're at a program, every coach needs their signature win to go on their runs.
Yeah.
But in individual seasons, you need that signature win. This is the one that propelled you along the way.
Yeah, well, Texas had it in 2005 when they won at Ohio State.
Exactly. So they had that one. And you'll probably need a signature comeback win, which they had in 2005 against Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State had them absolutely dead to rights. And then Greg Davis and Mac Brown got together and said, okay, here's what play we're going to call in the second half. Vince.
That's right. Vince, run it right. Didn't they have a comeback the year before against Kansas?
Yeah.
Didn't they almost lose to Kansas that other Rose Bowl year? Yeah. That's right.
And so, but they're like, okay. And then Vince would run over like, hey, what play are we running? I think you know.
Yeah.
We're running Vince.
They're like, hey, Vince, on this one, just throw in a pump fake,
Yeah.
get your defender up, and keep running.
Yeah.
Just shake it up a little
Here's
bit.
what we're going to do. After, in the fourth quarter, you're going to throw a pass to somebody who's going to be so wide open, you won't understand it. And it's going to confuse you to a point of where it might hurt you, but don't think about it. Because everybody's feeling the same way. Just go. But they had that. So now they've got their signature win. Now they can go about the business of winning the Big 12. Now, look, I don't think that's going to be easy at all. I don't think that this win doesn't, to me, put them way head and shoulders above everybody else.
No, I agree.
Because there are some really good and well-coached teams. And I'm going to tell you, I mean, look, I know that they've beaten Arkansas State and SMU, but they've given up a combined 11 points in those two games, especially against SMU. Most of the times you think you beat SMU. Even
in Oklahoma?
Yeah, Oklahoma. Yeah. That's a defense that might be very improved. So
yeah.
Oklahoma's going to be tough. Kansas State is one of the best coached teams in the entire country. TCU is still TCU despite – look, they lost by 3 to Colorado. Like it was a great win for Colorado, but it was not like a devastating loss for TCU. They lost by 3 points.
No, and that loss could actually end up it could look even better down the road.
Yeah, it probably won't look all that bad.
Right.
Because Colorado's probably going to be hanging in
right.
For quite some time.
Yeah.
Especially if they can invent chips on their shoulder to keep going
Sure,
on.
just keep making stuff up.
On down the line, you know.
Does Texas play Utah this year? I don't have their schedule.
No, Utah's not in yet. So they've got, I would say the toughest.
Oh, that's right.
The toughest games they have left are Oklahoma, Tech, Kansas State, and TCU.
Yeah,
all out there for them.
They're oft forgotten. Shouldn't be. But Kansas State, you don't want to like get all braggadocious about Kansas State and be like, well, it's their crown to defend. Although objectively, that's true.
Yeah.
And they are, man. Chris Kleiman can coach his butt off.
Yeah.
So
they're
it's
really
going to be
good.
a tough one.
Yeah.
Is that game in Austin or Manhattan? Do we know?
I cannot remember. But yeah, and that's a team that's been tough for them to beat over the last decade or so. They just kind of had their number a little bit.
They had Ron Prince had their number.
Look, the Sunflower State's not been kind to the Longhorns.
No, it has
between
not.
the two schools there.
No, it has
but
not.
I mean, it's a huge thing for them to to do what they did, because they were not, or like in years past, like the Texas is back game, they beat Notre Dame. Well, it turned out when Joe Tessitore said that, neither of those teams were back at that time.
No,
and early in the season, so that's been a whole thing. But now what they have to do is take this signature win and make sure that it's not just like, we did that.
Yeah.
Everything should come to us. And the biggest thing that Sark had to fix that I think he has was the culture of entitlement was there. And I've talked to several ex-Texas players that it was starting to really chap their hide a little bit, that they would walk into a place and be like, look, man, I won this ring.
Yeah.
You didn't.
Sure, yeah.
Like, our team did this. You did not. You've got to earn it, and you have to earn it by working as insanely hard as we did.
Yeah.
And that was not happening for a good long while.
Isn't entitlement, though, with anyone that's successful, but with athletes, isn't entitlement really just about degrees? Like, you're just trying to get it to a manageable level.
Yeah.
You're never going to get rid of it. But if you can get it to a manageable level, maybe that's what he's done.
Yeah.
Is at least got it to a point where, like, he can at least put that brass ring out there and say, it's this close. Give me a little bit more, a little less entitlement.
I do think it kind of helped he had that coach in year one, like on the bus that, I don't know if you heard the recording where he's like, the transfer portal is wide open. If you don't want to work this hard, you can jump right in, and we do not care.
Really?
Yeah. And it was one of those things where it came out. I think the person who released it thought they're like, oh, look how mean the coaches are. You're like, no, that's what coaches are.
Yeah.
Like, they're upset because you're not meeting the level of expectation.
Sure. Yeah.
And like, nobody's getting hit here. Like, you're just getting yelled at.
Yeah.
Like,
Toughen
and
up a little
so,
bit there,
but yeah,
Cowboy.
he unleashed, and it was like, and part of it was, look, you guys have, like, what have you done?
Yeah.
Like, that's, I'm a Cowboys fan. I remember a couple of years ago, like, being in the locker room. I said I'm a Cowboys fan. I also cover the Cowboys, but like being in the locker room and like watching the guys like kind of brag, like all these players were like flaunting their suits and their jewelry and everything. And I'm like, that's fine. I know that, like, that's cool, except that, like, that you guys haven't won a thing.
Yeah.
And like, so it's going to come off wrong, whether it's right or not, that you guys might be a little distracted by, by the little things. And then you go back a couple years later when some of those same players are older and they're not doing it because they're like, I think we might have gotten a little like, oh, I got some money. Let me focus on that and not like what could make me even more.
Yeah. Everybody grows up a little bit.
Yeah.
But going back to Texas Bama, I think it is good. Again, I come at it from a completely consumeristic point of view of, do I want to watch this team in this game? And in the same way that I'm the opposite of you, I loathe the Cowboys. Mm-hmm. I mean, with the fire of 1,000 suns. Mm-hmm. But when they're on Sunday Night Football, I'll watch it because it's an event and they're the Cowboys. Mm-hmm. The same way with I'm not rooting for or against Texas, but when they're good and they're going to give Bama a game in Bryant-Denny, you're dang right I had that thing on.
Oh, yeah. So, look, they've now become one of the more compelling teams in the country. I want to talk about in the next segment one of those other compelling teams, which Miami, with that win against A&M, I got caught a little flat-footed on there. I thought they might be another year away with the athletes, but
sure didn't seem like it.
No, they looked like they might have straightened things out.
You said compelling. I thought we were going straight to Baylor. My fault.
Oh no,
my fault.
We might wait on that. That was a weird game,
bro. Let me tell you something. Again, I'm full consumer mode today. Flipping back and forth between Colorado, Nebraska, and Baylor, Utah was a bad idea because to just see those two things contrast one another in real time, ooh, buddy.
Yeah,
it's a bad deal.
I ran into a Utah fan at Starbucks yesterday who was trying to sell me on Bryson Barnes, and I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean,
was it Bryson Barnes' parents?
Might have been. I don't know. But he was like, well, we just need to get Rising back. We're completely different with Rising.
Yeah.
So if it was Bryson Barnes' dad, he was.
At least he was honest.
Yeah. I was like, and I asked him this, and for people watching that don't know the geography of Texas, it's so huge. Like,
sure.
Sometimes people will be like, you're in Waco, and like, you don't mind, like, have you been to like El Paso recently? I'm like, no,
once in my life.
I'm like, no, it's not like somewhere I can get. Like, I've been to Dallas, I've been to Austin, been to Houston, but El Paso is like a commitment.
Yeah,
that's something like I've been to Atlanta more times than I've been to El Paso since I lived here because it's about the same distance away.
Yeah, not a quick trip.
So. But the guy was like, "Oh, are you local, like Texas, or are you in town?" I was curious because the Starbucks he was, there was like no hotels around, so I think he was in a fixer-upper Airbnb.
Gotcha.
But I asked him and he's like, "Oh no, kind of local, Victoria." I'm like, "It's like 6 hours from here."
It's not local at all.
I'm like, no. I was like, you might as well just said, yes, I'm from Utah. Like, you're halfway there right now.
Kind of local, Victoria.
So, yeah, but, well, whatever. So, anyway, when we come back, we'll talk about Miami and A&M. Oregon and Texas Tech. Texas Tech, I think, had them there for the taking and then, let them off the hook. But
I may sound like get off my lawn guy for a minute when we talk Oregon Tech, so I apologize in advance.
That's fine. That's fine. Sometimes you need people off your lawn.
Yeah.
Listen, get off my lawn, guys. Not always wrong.
No, I'm not wrong on this one either. I'm just preparing the faithful.
Especially if you've spent some time on that grass.
Yeah.
You win awards.
Worked hard on that grass.
That's right. All right. When we come back, this is the Triple Option.
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that's no good for business. A private UPN fiber network can get you and your business moving at the speed of light. Whatever you need, we can build it. Internet, Metro Ethernet, Waves, dark fiber. We deliver custom private networks and are focused on business customers only. Our next generation 100% fiber optic infrastructure offers you low latency and ultra scalable bandwidth with speeds up to 100 gigabit to run your critical applications. Your connection won't be limiting your performance anymore. It's diverse and scalable, so it can grow and change as your business grows and changes. And with a secure carrier-grade private network, you'll have all the reliability you need. Contact UPN today to learn more. Fast just got faster.
Welcome back to the Triple Option here on 365 Sports. I'm Paul Catalina alongside Chris Allman. Chris, I mentioned before the break, we got to get into some other games because we really drilled down to Texas and Bama, and that's the win of the weekend, really. So
Yep.
I'd like to say my beloved Florida State Seminoles and their 66-10 thumping of Southern Miss, but
Well, anytime you can take down the Eagles, who
That
basically
one-
disbanded their. No, that was UAB.
yeah,
Sorry.
that one was for Bobby Bowden, who lost on a Thursday night to Southern Miss and Brett Favre, and told that story at every dinner that he went to the rest of his life.
He made a lot of money to tell that story over and over.
Exactly. Yeah. Bobby, why do you like playing Thursday nights? Well, dadgummit, we played Thursday night on the road against Southern Miss against this quarterback named Brett Favre. Spelled his name weird.
That was half Bobby Bowden, half Will Ferrell doing Harry Carey.
Yeah.
There's a real
little bit.
morph of impressions there.
Yeah. But anyway, A&M in Miami. I thought A&M would just have too much depth for the Hurricanes eventually, but Miami carved A&M's defense up badly in that game. Of course, special teams played a role on either side of it. A&M blocked a punt that led to a touchdown. Miami missed some field goals, which never makes me sad. But they returned a kick for a touchdown.
Kids, if you're not sure what that was, Florida State lost to Miami several times on some missed field goals when Paul was a child.
Three wide rights and twice when I was at school. I was at wide right 3 and wide left 1. So,
okay.
So 3 wide rights and a wide left, and
Okay.
yeah. So I have some trauma. So
Yeah, sorry to derail.
Every time they miss a field goal, I'm like, how do you like it?
Yes. Suck it, Huerta.
Even though it's Carlos Huerta, that guy was good.
He was good.
He was good. Now, every time they do, I'm just like, but like that one was in the second quarter. It was inconsequential to the whole thing.
But do you know, so I'm sorry to derail. This is how big those Florida State Miami games were when I was in middle school.
Mm-hmm.
Not to dredge up painful memories. Dan Mowry and Jerry Callahan, were those the kickers' names? I remember those. Like, that's how
Yeah.
big those moments and those games were.
Yeah.
Two teams thousands of miles away that I was locked in on. So I understand the trauma, I
Yes.
guess is my point.
Look, Scott Bentley's the guy who changed the fortune of Florida State football. He made kicks, and they won a national title.
God bless him.
And then they had Sebastian Janikowski, who they should build a statue of.
They really should.
Although I think if they do, they're going to have to make some stuff go away.
Gonna need to scrub some records.
Yeah. So,
Maybe get some what's
Yeah.
it called? What, deferred adjudication when they wipe your record?
Exactly.
Get
yeah.
some things
So
done.
that, like, no, that's never happened. But Miami, I'm not like they're not back or anything. Like that was a big win for them though.
Yeah.
Like them scoring 48 points in the game was really huge against an A&M team that's supposed to be better. And I like it might not change what A&M was going to do this year anyway. Like they were 5-7 last year. Like the goal for them should be to get back to their baseline of 8-4, which is where they live. That's still probably very realistic to happen for them. Their defense is worse than I thought it was at this point in the year. They need kind of to lock it up there. Offense was fine, but Miami they've got some players again all of a sudden, and that is due to the transfer portal.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you know, I know you're not probably super fluent chapter and verse in Miami. They built that program recruiting the state of Miami.
Yeah.
Right?
Tampa South.
Are those transfers local, or did they go get the
No, they're
dudes
just going
from all
to get
over
guys.
the country?
And like again, they've got NIL. They've got Life Wallet guy who's just lets them walk into the vault and play supermarket sweep.
Yeah.
So so they've got that part figured out. I will say I do think it's like I'm watching it and it's not the Miami we grew up like they were honoring Howard Schnellenberger, and because they're in the Dolphin Stadium, like all their things that they have to put up, they just had to like put it on removable.
Oh, yeah. So it's not
like,
permanent.
Not permanent.
Yeah.
Like they really need to get their own place again. And it's just, it may be a thing that never happens, but
Yeah.
But it was, and the stadium wasn't anywhere close to full, but the people who were there were getting after it.
Yeah.
And so, maybe that creates some of the Miami hype train because the thing they did when they blew up the Orange Bowl and they went into what is now Hard Rock, that was Joe Robbie and Pro Player and about 7 other sponsor names. over the years.
That's the same stadium? Mm-hmm. That's not a brand new stadium?
No.
I thought Hard Rock was brand new.
No, they've remodeled it.
Oh, okay.
It's the same. It's the same foundation. Just it's got
torn to the studs and rebuilt.
Yeah.
The games.
So they've been exactly. Yeah. So, they find the materials cheaper in Miami. Just boat washed up on shore with all this stuff. What do you know?
Again, not as an analyst, but where I see as I watched the Miami A&M game as much of as I could, and where I see A&M largely kind of getting crushed is the D-line.
I was surprised. Like, they played well early, but, like, look, they were Walter Nolden and Shamar Stewart, and, like, they've got guys that made plays. They really did get a little worn out in that game, and I was surprised. But Miami, like, they're a team you're going to have to watch for the rest of the year because they've got some athletes again and guys can make plays. And Tyler Van Dyke, who was awful last year and hurt and on his, like, 11th offensive coordinator, it felt like, in his tenure at Miami. Shannon Dawson, the offensive coordinator now, appears to have him pointed in the right direction, and that's scary for the schools in the ACC.
Do you mean Tyler Van Dyme, as his mom likes to call him?
Yeah.
I got beaten by that little tidbit after about 2 minutes. They showed his mom in the stands wearing a Van Dyme jersey.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, Mom.
Yeah, there we go.
Way to stay low-key.
Yeah.
Is A&M – I see two contrasting things here, and this is really just a question that I'm interested to hear your thoughts on. Mario Cristobal is not he was good at Oregon, right? Like, we know he can coach. Jimbo – there feels like a dividing line between the old and the new, and it feels very, very prevalent right now, right? Your new blood, you've kind of got Dion leading the way, but you've got Cristobal and a lot of these younger guys. I mean, all the way down to G.J. Kinney, who was here a couple weeks ago. Then you have your Sabins and your Jimbos that are excellent coaches, but seem to not be changing with the times very well. Do you feel like that game was a little bit? I don't want to add more to it than it was.
No, but I do think that, like, that's been Jimbo's problem, is adjusting to change.
Yeah.
Look, he got in the transfer portal more than he has this year, and I think made some really good pickups in the transfer portal, but I think he's been slow to change, and that's what's kind of caught up to him.
Yeah. Because
it worked, and then it didn't.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you're like, oh, I needed, I didn't. But Jimbo had a run of quarterbacks between LSU and Florida State that all were really good. Mm-hmm. I mean, Jamarcus Russell, Matt Flynn, Matt Mock. Like, Matt Flynn and Matt Mock won national titles. Matt Flynn had a long NFL career as a backup, made a lot of money because of Jimbo Fisher. He put E.J. Manuel, Christian Ponder, and Jameis Winston in the first round of the draft. Jameis Winston was the number 1 overall pick. Jamarcus Russell was the number 1 overall pick. So he's got 2 number 1 overall pick quarterbacks in his back pocket as a coach, as an offensive coordinator and head coach. And then he goes to A&M, and none of that happens.
Yeah.
And so you get to the point of, like, well, why is it not? And part of it is that he's running an offense that is antiquated.
Yeah, and the change to Petrino, I couldn't tell you, like, if you pressed me, like, tell me what kind of offenses Bobby Petrino runs. I could tell you from memory, like, he ran some pretty high-scoring offenses, but it still feels like not a step back quality-wise, but you're reaching back in time to get someone to compete in a modern game.
I think it was like, if you want to talk about X's and O's, like, personalities be damned in this, because you're not going to win if you made the A&M coaching staff a Girl Scout troop selling cookies, you would probably even pass up Thin Mints from them, because you're like, these guys are just crabby. It's Jimbo Fisher and Bobby Petrino and DJ Durkin and Steve Adazio. Like, you've got a lot of guys that are, like,
grumpy. They're just grumpy guys.
Grumpy, like, questionable. Like, in the case of Durkin and Petrino as 2 coordinators, like, really questionable things that have happened in their past. I mean, DJ Durkin and the kid that died when he was the head coach of Maryland, and that was because he was just negligent. All, like, those things, like, happen. So he, like, I think you're seeing, like, Mario Cristobal is, like, he's taking everything. He has to take everything he can to make Miami work as fast as he can. Because Mike Norvell is doing that in Tallahassee. Mm-hmm. He's got to beat him if he wants to win the league. You know, Deion Sanders is going to recruit in every state in the country that has good players, and every coach has to ward him off. So you have to adapt, you know. So you've got all these coaches, and then if you're not fast to adapt like Jimbo Fisher, you're going to get stuck. You're going to get stuck. And I think that's what we're seeing. He's trying to change, but how much patience do you have if you're Texas A&M, especially when you can look at other younger coaches and go, maybe that's what you need to do here. And I would say that if Jimbo Fisher ultimately doesn't win at A&M and they let him go, that they don't need to do the thing where who's the biggest possible name that we can find to hire. You need to say who's the best possible name that we can find to hire.
Yeah.
And who's been here before? No.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Jimbo wasn't there before. You know, like Dennis Frank, like that doesn't thing. Like those are the things you do. I would say who's the best possible coach, who runs the best possible system, who can recruit the best players, who is somewhere that maybe doesn't have the advantages that we have and winning. And if we gave him these powers, he would win.
Yeah.
So those are the things they need to look at. I have a guy in mind for that job. And he coaches in San Antonio. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
I think he would be fantastic at it.
Okay.
And I think that it's a hard place to, like, everywhere's hard to coach.
Yeah.
There's some places that are uniquely hard. And Texas A&M, who we talked about, the lion's share of this, are two of the hardest places to coach.
Yeah.
Maybe in the world. Like, it might be easier to coach Texas A&M than it is to coach Man U. Like, honestly, it is so tough to coach at A&M.
Yeah.
And so there are a lot of things going on there. I do want to talk about Texas Tech and Oregon.
Okay.
Texas Tech had that upset loss at Wyoming. They welcome Oregon. It is maybe the most eyes that have been on Lubbock, Texas in quite a long time.
Since 2009.
Yeah, and came right down to the end of the game and threw a very unfortunate pick six and lost.
Yeah.
I don't see losses as net positives, but I see what everybody sees in Tech and that they're going to be better. But I do think that maybe we put the cart before the horse of this is a team that's going to take the world by storm in year 2 of Joey McGuire.
Yes. We all get enamored by Coach McGuire, and rightfully so, right? Like, he's a guy that you're like, okay, I'm in.
Yeah.
You know, like whatever you got. I think if there's an 0-2 team in the country that can feel okay about the trajectory of things, Tech is one of them.
Yeah.
Now, the Wyoming loss, it sucks, but it's over and done with. You almost beat Oregon in your place. Again, I don't think they need to be there's no reason for them to feel hopeless.
Yeah.
They may need to reevaluate their timeline emotionally, the fans at least, and the money people, but they played really good offensive football in that game.
Yeah.
The tackling in that game was flipping atrocious.
Well, I mean, that was for everyone.
I know.
It was like they agreed before the game of, we're not going to hit that hard.
Yes. And perhaps I didn't play football, so I'm not going to sit out here and call kids weak. But my brother is a football coach, so I'm around football coaches who will very much call kids weak. And so maybe I just hear from them that kids are afraid to hit. But boy, that that Tech Oregon game, this is my get off my lawn bit. It's like, man, nobody would wrap up. Like, so many guys slipping out of tackles with guys around their ankles. Tech makes a few tackles. I mean, perhaps Oregon makes a few more. It's a bigger win. But Tech played great offensive football. Again, I sound like such a surly old guy, and I apologize to, I guess, surly old guys. But I can't get – Bo Nix is awesome. Tyler Shuck is awesome.
Yeah.
But it's really – the game is made to be a quarterback now. So when you're prolific and putting up numbers, I'm not like, wow, that's awesome. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I thought that was a really good game. I thought it lacked tremendously in some fundamentals. I wasn't all that wowed. I think both quarterbacks are really good. They're taking advantage of a system that caters to them. But I think Tech is going to be fine. I think if you're high on Coach McGuire and what he's doing, I don't think there's any reason to back off of that.
No. I just think that sometimes you like the only difference is you thought at worst you'd be 1-1, and now you're 0-2.
Yeah.
Because you had a little, opening week
Hiccup.
Yeah. But, they'll learn from those things and move on. I mean, Joe McGuire's the human shot of espresso, so they'll be fine. They'll be like, again, there's not been a coach.
He's the right amount of Dan Campbell.
Yes.
He's like, you're like, Dan Campbell might be a little bit too much. Joey McGuire's the right amount of Dan Campbell.
I think but Joey McGuire and Dan Campbell have similar things in that, he's got to make sure that nobody ever questions like, well, Lubbock's really far out.
Yeah.
Like he has to take all that out because it's really the only thing he's working against.
Sure, it's geography.
It's geography.
Yeah.
He can't change it. He just has to convince you it's not as big a deal as you've made it.
Yes.
Dan Campbell is dealing with years and years and years of futility.
Sure.
And so he has to be because he can't be, like poor Rod Marinelli who was up there as so those things, I think sometimes it gets to be a little bit much, or once you've gone through it and you start winning and they still do it, you're like, well, I get why you had to do this then.
Yeah.
But kind of like Georgia last year when that nobody Kirby Smart took it. It was very brilliant and somehow convinced the players nobody thought they would do it when it was really nobody wanted them to. Everybody wanted the majority of the college football world wanted to see TCU win last year.
Right.
Because it would have been a much better story than Georgia winning back-to-back.
Right.
Another SEC team winning. It would have been this great story. People like to root for Cinderella. Everybody thought you could, Georgia. Just nobody wanted you to.
Yes.
There's a different thing.
For sure.
Yeah. No, everybody thinks you can. They don't want you to.
The nobody wanted us to, nobody believed in us trope is one. If I had to vote on what I'd like to retire.
Oh yeah.
That and then nobody respected us. We were talking a little bit about Shadur, and his bit before but going back, I watched Tech in Oregon and I thought this thing is going in the right direction, and you really are, save for one or two plays, a couple plays against Wyoming and a bad pick that was not an egregiously bad pick, right? I mean, Shuck throws that thing. He's under duress. Not the end of the world. So I think if I'm a Tech fan, of the 0-2 teams in the country, I think Tech fans can feel okay. Now, I'm not one of them. So, yeah. I mean, I'm not a diehard Tech alum. So maybe they feel differently.
Yeah. When we come back, teams that are in trouble, and we can start right here in the 254. They are 0-2 and 0 for their last 6. This is 365 Sports, the triple option.
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that's no good for business. A private UPN fiber network can get you and your business moving at the speed of light. Whatever you need, we can build it. Internet, Metro Ethernet, Waves, dark fiber. We deliver custom private networks and are focused on business customers only. Our next generation 100% fiber optic infrastructure offers you low latency and ultra scalable bandwidth with speeds up to 100 gigabit to run your critical applications. Your connection won't be limiting your performance anymore. It's diverse and scalable, so it can grow and change as your business grows and changes. And with a secure carrier-grade private network, you'll have all the reliability you need. Contact UPN today to learn more. Fast just got faster.
Welcome back to the triple option here on 365 Sports. Teams that are in trouble. We're going to start with Baylor, a team that is just 2 years removed from winning the Big 12 title. They're on a 6-game skid, and they really did defensively play their butts off the other day. Really did against Utah. You saw a lot better effort than you did against Texas State. But the thing is that at the end of the day, it comes out with another loss, and this is a team that's on a skid. They welcome in Long Island this week, but get-right games often are only fleeting and temporary. And that get-right game comes in the middle of, Utah and Texas, who just had their signature win. So if you're a Baylor team, that's really scary. A&M, might not be as good defensively. Bama might have quarterback problems. There are some things you look around and go, okay, and look, we're only 2 weeks in, but it is interesting. Look, Nebraska is 0-2, and I don't think anybody thought that they were going to be any more than I thought they might be 1-1 after this.
Yeah,
I didn't know what Colorado was going to be, and then after last week, I didn't expect them to beat Colorado at all. So
yeah,
but Nebraska's got to reassess who they are, and may not be without Jeff Sims, and have to figure out who the quarterback is between two other guys that are transfers. So,
well, that poor kid's got some turnover issues. Joel Klatt was doing a deep dive into why does this kid have such a hard time? Like it was mental. That's beside the point. I think teams that are in trouble relative to their expectations. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we're really close to it. I don't know that anybody could make an argument that Baylor is in worse trouble than anyone. I mean, relative to expectations, maybe Bama. Maybe the sky's falling in Tuscaloosa.
Well, I just think, look, they've got to figure out their quarterback situation because Jalen Milroe, just in his first competition against a good team, looked overmatched and like he maybe is not the guy.
The Baylor game, Baylor's current predicament, I have no idea what is actually wrong. We don't know what is actually wrong other than they're on the wrong end of the scoreboard the last 6 games. You can blame
all of them are different.
Yes.
It's not the same thing every single time.
Right. The Texas State loss and the Utah loss are dramatically different. Even your defense playing better, though I think they will be fine defensively regardless of opponent. Even your defense playing better came without Cam Rising playing. So we might have a whole different assessment if Cam Rising was playing. But it's lethargic at the stadium. It's dull offensively. It's in contrast to some of the really energetic and exciting things going on in other programs. There's no juice over there. I mean, I heard Mac on with you guys talking about the lack of energy really being one of the more alarming things. And again, just as a consumer, as a guy that married into a Baylor family, there's a resigned kind of okay, here we go. At least when Coach Rule's first year, there was some anger. I've heard people say in marriage, if you're counseling a married couple, if there's some anger with each other, you can fix that. But if they don't care, that's really hard to fix. Yeah. There just seems to be a lethargy right now about Baylor football that's really hard to get back on the rails. So if I had to cast a vote, they're in worse trouble than most.
Yeah, it's good because I don't know. And the thing is they got a really tough schedule and a really even league, right? So they got to play Cincinnati. And that would have been one of the ones where everybody's like, they'll probably get Cincinnati. Yeah. Cincinnati just beat Pitt. Look pretty darn good doing it.
Yeah.
Emory Jones, Scott Satterfield and Emory Jones might be that match that Emory Jones has been looking for all this time. And, I thought when Dan Mullen couldn't get the most out of him, and he was very much a Dan Mullen type quarterback. Of course, that was a bigger issue than just quarterback when Dan Mullen was at Florida. But Dan Mullen didn't, and then he went to Arizona State, which was an unmitigated disaster last year. So maybe you don't put that on Emory Jones. So the kid's been through a lot. Now he's good. Okay. They're on Baylor's schedule. Texas is still on the schedule. UCF in the first Big 12 home game on the schedule in 3 weeks. By the way, I'll be there that week. The 28th and 29th, we'll be doing shows.
Is that a personal trip or
No, we'll be there doing
trip?
shows. Okay. Yeah. Jack and I are going. Jack couldn't be more excited. He's going to go to Harry Potter World. I don't think he's listening.
That was met with a resounding shrug.
He can't hear me, so yeah. Anyway, he can't. He's got his earbuds in. Oh, okay. Oh, he can hear me? Okay, good.
He's giving you hand signals.
Oh, I was hoping Zach was excited about going to Harry Potter World. And
I don't know if I have the money to go to Harry Potter.
Oh, listen, folks, we got to get jacked.
Jack, I picked up on that. I knew you didn't want to say that on the air. I picked up on it, buddy. I'm sorry.
I can't see his face through the tripod. So we're going to make sure Jack
Poor
gets to
Jack.
go to Harry Potter World. So we'll start a GoFundMe. Sorry about your new kidney, guy.
Guy works 90 hours a week here and hosts like 5 different shows.
Yeah.
Throw him a bone.
Yeah.
Get him to Harry Potter World.
So,
Is there a school I'm like, we're really close to
No, we're
it.
really close to it. Look,
I'm having dinner twice a week with people who are really apathetic about Baylor football. Is there a program that's in worse shape relative to expectations nationally?
I would say that the coach whose seat has gotten relatively the hottest that was like a medium temperature would be Dave Aranda.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that that's imminent or anything. I just think that relative to what's going on, like right now they're on a 6-game losing streak.
Yeah.
And, that's likely to end this week against Long Island, one would think.
Exactly. But even you were like,
yeah. Well, I mean, I don't want to
yeah.
I mean, weird stuff happens in sports.
Yeah.
So, but then if say you end the 6-game losing streak, but then it turns into 10 of your last 11, then you've got you have to really assess what's going on.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, I would say, and because there's a lot of big programs that make changes already. Like, Matt Rule's 0-2. He's not in the hot seat. Hugh Freeze barely beat Cal. He's just there. He just got there. So, like, a lot of the places I wouldn't say are, like, hot seat. Arizona State just, changed their head coach.
Yeah.
Texas looks like they're doing well. So, anybody's there. Like, Jimbo Fisher's seat is going to remain at a differentiating temperature of hot and warm,
right,
depending on what they're doing and how much they decide they're going to tolerate versus money they're going to pay him to not coach there. I think Billy Napier's seat is going to be pretty warm at Florida. But, again, he's in year 2 and hasn't done a good – like, Dave Aranda's own success is hurting him right now in that, like, everybody knows that they can do it.
Mm-hmm.
But – there's a lot of issues going at Baylor, some of which are not inside Dave Aranda's control,
right?
Or that he did not react, like that they did not as a program react to well. I think we talked about it last week, like the transfer portal, they did not grab hold of that as fast as everybody else did.
Yeah.
And now they are, but the problem is throw NIL on the top of that, and so schools that are like, for example, SMU. Just dusted off their old 1984 playbook and was here's what you do. Like, here's how we're going to give people money. And now nobody's going to say anything about it, And then Baylor was just like, okay, well, let's start out. They're starting from the ground up is where, A&M had to look, here's the thing. Many schools had, I could say dormant, but many schools were doing a lot of this anyway.
Yeah.
And now they just like, oh, you mean I don't have to
hide it.
Tell somebody to meet me at a Denny's at 3 a.m. and,
come
we don't
have
alone.
To be delusional.
Yeah.
Like everybody was doing this stuff.
Yeah. You're gonna go to Avis Rent-A-Car. You will ask them for the only Toyota Camry they have. In the trunk of that Toyota Camry is a bag. That bag has a key to a locker. That locker is at a bus station 3 miles from the.
You sound like Dwight Schrute.
Yeah, exactly. That's how it goes.
By the way, have you guys on your afternoon show? Sorry, we out of time.
No, I'm just.
Have you guys ever had Ross Dellinger on with Yahoo?
Oh, all the time.
Okay. His article he just wrote about SMU's entry into the ACC was awesome.
Yeah,
I highly
excellent.
recommend.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, Ross is great. We have him on all the time.
It was really well done.
Yeah, we have him on all the time. So
I just think with Baylor, again, speaking purely as a consumer, because candidly, I don't know what the expectation is of the guy in this chair if I'm supposed to be like objective, but I have friends over there that I really want them to do well, right? But I can also objectively look at it and say, this thing's going fast in an ugly direction. And then you scan the college football landscape. I mean, geez, even Oregon State, Washington, like these electric, energetic programs, and it can be done here. And you're just like, I want it to change. I'm never going to be this guy that's like, fire Aranda, it has to be done. I don't like that. I don't want to be that guy. I agree, it's not imminent. I hope it doesn't happen. I hope he rights the ship, but they need way more than just a bounce back against Long Island.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's just there are, and you look at the teams in the conference, there's so much excitement with, teams in the like UCF is having their best recruiting classes ever.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, we're not even getting into the 4 teams that are coming in. One of whom you just lost to is the 2-time defending champion of that conference. So there's exciting things going on all over the, Texas Tech has this big NIL energy going on there in Lubbock right now. TCU is coming off a championship appearance. Kansas State, there's energy around that program. So outside of Iowa State's more moribund right now, but that has maybe more to do with some stuff that went on off the field, sure. Right? So
because other players lost a bunch of money betting on themselves.
Well, the thing it's not even a bunch. That's what really makes it sting is you see this underage gambling scandal in Iowa, and both teams have had to kick guys off the team, and they've had all these guys plead guilty, and then you're like, well, how much money did you bet? And they're like $722. You're like, okay. So
it's like Dr. Evil wanting $1 million.
Yeah, it is and look, they broke the rules. Yeah, it's a rule, and it's a rule for a damn good reason too.
Yeah,
you can't there's a reason that players aren't allowed to gamble. Yes. There's a very, very good reason that they're not.
That's the one we can all agree on. Yes. There's not a real strong lobby for players should be able to gamble.
It's not like weed where you're there's this huge gray area in it. You're like, well, if I can do it, why can't they do it or whatever? Those kind of things. Well, I can do it because I have no effect on any of the outcome.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I don't. I'm reasonably sure that as bad as wanting certain things to happen, I've never made them happen.
Right.
I don't have the force.
Yes.
But if you're the quarterback of a team and you're betting on games, then that's a problem.
Yeah.
Because you can affect the outcome and there's integrity issues there. Yeah. But when you do see how these kids got into this, and you can see how a dumb mistake it is. Why not? I'll bet $10 on the Cowboys and Giants.
Yeah.
Well, then $10 turns into $722 because you made 72 bets or whatever you did. And then you've committed a felony in the state of Iowa because you're 19 and illegally using a gambling app, and the threshold is $400.
Yeah.
So
talk about 2 teams that were just ready for the regular season to start. Just so somebody would write a game story or something.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. They played.
Game.
Cyhawk was this weekend. But I do Baylor, there is a lack of juice right now, and they need to find it. They need to find it somehow. They've had it, but now it's just it's like they're grabbing at it and can't find it because there are some overlapping issues that have happened a couple of different times. But if you go back through the 6-game losing streak and look at how they lost each one of them, you wouldn't be able to be like, well, that's this one, because this one was different than Texas State.
Yeah.
And Texas State was different than Air Force. Mm-hmm. And Air Force was different than Kansas State. And Kansas State was different than West Virginia. All those different losses that they've had the last couple of years.
Yeah.
This one was different than Texas. All of it different. So, Dave Aranda, I think the biggest issue, he's got to get all those guys pulling the rope in the same direction. Yeah. And I think that, and pulling it enthusiastically, and that's not what's happening right now.
Yeah. And it is unfortunate, I guess is the word, because, they preach this person over player, and they really there's a lot of the rhetoric over there is positive stuff that you like, you're for it, but you're also it all works better if you win. Yeah. You need to win. People care about this stuff, but you got to win in order to have that influence.
Yeah, absolutely. My apologies to Jack McKenzie for, airing his business. But I legitimately couldn't see his.
It's okay.
His face or his hands.
It's okay.
I can see his hand now. Saw that one.
I've never been to Harry Potter World. I've never read the books or seen the movies. So that's it. That's all I got.
Okay, good deal. You got kids who's probably coming your way.
Oh, my wife watched them all 3 weeks ago. I just didn't pay attention.
Oh, good for you.
I'm a 45-year-old adult. Yeah. So too busy watching Suits.
Way to go. We're going to talk about that one day.
Sophisticated television.
That's right. Suits. Hey, do you think they had folder toss training on Suits?
Dude, I think I could write an episode of Suits.
Here's the deal. So everything is really tense when sometimes it seems like they should have gotten past it. And then, no, I'm not trying to knock the show because I did enjoy it, but like they would they had this like folder thing where they would like walk into a room and like instead of just like putting a folder on a desk, whatever it was, they'd be like, oh yeah? Well, this says you can't. And they would just like toss and slide the folder.
I've never been a lawyer, but here's Suits. Apparently there's a folder that tells you everything you need to know. They hand them the folder and they go, this merger? I've been waiting my whole life for this merger. There you go. I just auditioned for Suits.
Yeah. If they have a revival, you'll be right there.
I'm the guy.
You'll be in the office next to Lewis. That's where you'll be. That's going to do it for us. This is the Triple Option on 365 Sports.
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that's no good for business. A private UPN fiber network can get you and your business moving at the speed of light. Whatever you need, we can build it.